The Mysterious Island by Jules Verne. If I were starting public domain publishing from scratch today, The Mysterious Island would get my attention very quickly. When I checked Project Gutenberg, this book had received 42,865 downloads in the previous 30 days. That is more than 1,400 free downloads every day. Then I checked Amazon. One established paperback edition of The Mysterious Island was sitting at roughly 71,000 across the entire books store. So people are not only downloading this story free, there's paid demand for a physical copy as well. The competition is there, but it does not look like the endless wall of strong editions you see around some of the biggest classics. The book is old, the demand is strong, the Amazon evidence is there, and on the surface the copyright history looks extremely clean. This is starting to look like one of those books where almost every box gets ticked. So would I publish The Mysterious Island as my first public domain book? There is one detail we have not looked at yet, and it changes my answer completely. Now, before I get too excited about the numbers, I want to look at the actual buying hook for The Mysterious Island, because a good Gutenberg number gets me interested, but the story still has to make someone want the book. The Mysterious Island begins during the American Civil War. 5 prisoners escape in a balloon. A violent storm carries them across the world, and they crash on a remote island in the Pacific. They've basically got nothing, so they start using their knowledge to build shelter, tools, food supplies, eventually something close to a functioning little society. But then strange things start happening. People are rescued when they probably shouldn't survive. Objects appear, help seems to come from nowhere, and slowly it becomes obvious that somebody or something may be watching them. So you've got adventure, survival, and science fiction. Mystery, and Jules Verne already has name recognition. You really don't have to invent a reason for somebody to pick up The Mysterious Island. The story already gives you plenty. Now let's look at the demand for The Mysterious Island. When I checked Project Gutenberg, it showed 42,865 downloads over 30 days. That's roughly 1,400 downloads every single day. For a book this old, that's a lot of current attention. Then I look at Amazon competition. And yes, The Mysterious Island has other editions, so this isn't some empty little market that nobody has noticed. But there's a big difference between having competition and having an overwhelming number of really strong competitors. Some famous public domain books have page after page after page of polished editions, all fighting for the same buyer. Here the field looks a lot more workable. There are recognized publishers, there are illustrated editions, there are cheap reprints. But only a smaller group really seem to be positioned properly. So now I've got 2 pretty useful clues. A lot of people are actively looking for The Mysterious Island, and the serious Amazon competition doesn't look completely out of control. That's exactly the kind of combination that makes me keep digging. Then I want to know whether people are actually paying for The Mysterious Island. Because free downloads are one thing, paid demand is another. When I checked, one established paperback edition was ranked number 70,884 across the entire Amazon bookstore. Now, Amazon rank moves all the time, so I would never look at one number and pretend it's some permanent sales report, but sitting around 71,000 tells me something pretty clearly. Physical copies are selling, and this edition is more than 500 pages long. That's important because the buyer could download the same story for free. Instead, they're choosing a big physical book. So clearly, price isn't the only thing driving the purchase. Presentation, convenience, trust, and the reading experience matter. And The Mysterious Island gives us plenty to work with. A strong cover, clean formatting, useful historical context, or maybe original illustrations. So at this point, the book is still passing almost everything I'd normally want to see. The product possibilities for The Mysterious Island are strong as well, and I wouldn't go crazy with it. The buyer is searching for Jules Verne, so I'd keep Jules Verne's original work right at the center of the product. But around that, there's room to add some useful value. Maybe a short historical introduction, a map showing the journey and the island setting, a timeline connecting the story to the American Civil War, some simple notes explaining older scientific ideas, carefully selected illustrations, and of course, formatting that makes a book of more than 500 pages actually comfortable to read. The Mysterious Island also connects naturally with other Jules Verne books, so we're not only looking at one possible title here, there could be catalog potential as well. And that's interesting because one good first book is useful. A good first book that can naturally lead into another book and another one after that is much more interesting. Demand looks good, paid demand looks good, competition looks workable, the product angle is there. So now we get to the copyright check. And this is where one little word suddenly becomes very important. Translator. Here's the part a lot of beginners would miss with The Mysterious Island. The original book was written in French, so the English version I'm looking at is a translation. And that means I can't just check Jules Verne and go, yep, he's public domain, we're done. No, I also have to check the person who translated the book into English. The Gutenberg edition identifies the translator as Agnes Kingston. This English translation dates from 1875. Jules Verne died in 1905. Agnes Kingston died in 1913. So even under the longest copyright checks we normally use across Amazon territories, both of them have been dead for well over 100 years. From a rights point of view, this translation is extremely clean. But translations add another moving part. The translator has their own rights, their death date matters, the translation date matters. You need evidence for all of it, and Amazon pays particular attention to translated public domain works because this is an area where publishers make mistakes. So The Mysterious Island still passes the copyright check, but now I'm looking at a book with one extra layer of risk. And for a first publication, that matters. So would I publish The Mysterious Island as my first public domain book? My verdict is no. And this one is frustrating because almost everything else says yes. More than 42,000 Gutenberg downloads in 30 days. Clear paid demand on Amazon. A strong adventure hook. Reasonable serious competition. Excellent product potential. And both the author and translator comfortably pass our copyright checks. Would I publish The Mysterious Island later? Absolutely. But I would not make it the first public domain book on a brand new account. And the reason is experience. Translated public domain works can attract extra attention from Amazon. Not because they're prohibited, they're not. You can be completely within copyright law, completely within Amazon policy, and still have Amazon ask questions because there's another rights layer involved. And a new publishing account can already receive more scrutiny. So personally, I wouldn't combine those two things on book number one. You could even have a book blocked while Amazon asks for evidence, despite having perfectly valid evidence ready to send them. Once you've got some experience, you know what documents to keep, you know how these checks work, and you've built a little publishing history, that's a different situation. So my verdict is great book, strong future publication, wrong first publication, sometimes the book passes every test, and experience still tells you to wait.